And if you have questions and you don't want to be recorded speaking, that's fine. Just put your question in the chat and I'll read it aloud. And then that way, we can have as many people participate as we can. So there's kind of 3 topics today that we're going to talk about. So the first is the SDK 29 update, which went out at the end of July, and we sort of, over the month of August, we're working out some of the kinks related to those changes, mainly focused on the file permissions change that is starting to be enforced in Android 10, and will be sort of a hard enforcement in Android 11 starting next year. So we're trying to give people a little bit of time to migrate their apps to use the new scoped permissions model that is going to be coming into effect. It's been around in Android actually since Android SDK 8, which was Android 2.1. So, but we haven't ever really made App Inventor users use it, but now Google is sort of calling us on it, or it's calling all Android developers on it. But of course, we sort of leverage the fact that not all these things are enforced necessarily to kind of make it easier for our beginning users to not have to worry about permissions and files and all that stuff. So that's one thing. So you can expect to probably see more updates of the test servers as we kind of work out some additional issues that arise. I've also been working on a new model for file operations in general for App Inventor, and it's a draft pull request on GitHub. The idea being is that we'll have a more sort of centralized way of accessing files, and then as additional updates come out in the future, if extensions and components are using those, that everyone will get the same behavior. And as we need to update to address Android challenges, then kind of everybody will be automatically upgraded as they go along. There's also, I guess, some issues that I've seen on the forum cropping up of certain components are also kind of breaking with this change on Android 10, so we'll continue to monitor those and put in additional patches as needed. The second thing I wanted to briefly talk about was iOS status update. So over the summer, we released 3 updates to the companion. The latest one was last week, and our goal is to try to do a release roughly every 2 weeks right now, as we get closer to submitting the app for App Store review. We don't know yet exactly how much effort it's going to take once Apple gives us whatever changes they need us to make for approval. So we don't have a firm date yet as to when it would be in the App Store, but the plan is to work on that in the coming month or so and make sure that we're ready to go. Ideally by the end of the year, but like I said, it depends on what Apple asks us to change. So we have 2 major features that we're kind of hoping to fit in before we submit it to the App Store. The first is dictionaries, which I've been working on the iOS support for. And so the idea would be that the blocks language between the 2, both the Android and the iOS version, would be basically exactly the same. Just the components are going to be different because not every component has been implemented yet for iOS. The other piece that we're looking to finish is support for the WebRTC connection. So when you connect Android to App Inventor, it uses WebRTC, which is a protocol for creating peer-to-peer communication channels over the web securely. And there's 2 reasons for this. One is that it makes it generally more robust to network address translation layers, so firewalls and things like that. It does allow you, for example, to use App Inventor on your cell phone without being connected to Wi-Fi, is one example of why it's useful. Previously, you always had to be on the same Wi-Fi network. That's true of the iOS version because we haven't implemented WebRTC support for that. And so we want to kind of make it so that both the Android and iOS versions are similar in terms of the connectivity. The second reason for doing that is because the way the legacy mode works in terms of connections prevents us from switching App Inventor over to HTTPS. And so, another big thing that's kind of bearing down on us is the fact that browsers more and more are pushing for sites to be served securely. And we want to be able to do that for App Inventor, but the legacy mode, when we turn that on, will break, and there's no workaround for that. What we will probably do is if people really need legacy mode, we're likely to offer a legacy App Inventor that Minaju, and that will be the same exact service just over HTTP. But once WebRTC is available on both Android and iOS, then that makes it a lot easier for us to move to HTTPS support. And then regarding iOS beta testing, for those of you who are beta testers, thank you for continuing to give us bugs and feedback on that. In particular, we're looking at two major things we're trying to address related to bugs. So one is any layout issues. If you continue to have layout issues on the iOS version, please send us screenshots, send us AIA files. We're trying to do our best to kind of understand where the corner cases are with respect to layout. So any problems you encounter there, the more data we have, the easier it is for us to try to solve the layout issues. And then the second item is we're starting to do more analysis of the crash logs that are collected on iOS 13 and higher. And so if you encounter a crash where the app just quits unexpectedly, if you could send us the AIA file that you were using when you were testing it that caused the crash, that's helpful too, because already I've fixed a couple bugs because I was able to align when the bug report came in with the crash log in Xcode and then work backwards to figure out what exactly caused the crash. And so in the next release, we'll have a fix for the particular issue that caused that. So it's really helpful for us. The more data you can give us so that we can debug issues, the faster we can turn things around and get the iOS companion out the door. So, for those of you who have been very thorough in terms of testing and have given us good feedback, we really appreciate it. And then the bulk of this meeting is aimed at getting to hear from students. And this summer, we participated in Google Summer of Code. We had 6 students who worked on a range of different projects, some more on the back end, some more on the front end, some more on the website, some more on the companion and components. So you'll get to see, I think, a pretty good breadth of changes to App Inventor that'll be coming out in the next few months. And I actually would like to start with last year's Google Summer of Code participant, Evaldis, who joined us this year as a mentor for Google Summer of Code, and he mentored Sarah, who will be speaking a little bit later. But Evaldis, would you like to just share very briefly your Google Summer of Code project?
Yeah, hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone. So last year I worked with mentor Jose, who wasn't part of this year, but he used to be a mentor last year to introduce charts to App Inventor. So it's like still in a bit of a lengthy process of reviewing, and we've been going through some changes back and forth, but it's more or less in a presentable state. So I just like to spend a couple of minutes to show what's in store. So let me just share my screen. Is this visible?
Yes.
Okay, so basically we worked on adding chart components, and this comes in 2 parts. So there's data components and chart components. So I'll get to the data logic later, but basically it's a an isolated component that lets you graph data. So there were a few various customization options that you can have here. For the charts, we also support 5 types. So we have line, scatter, area, bar, and pie charts. And all of this also works on the Android side. I don't have the emulator with me right now, but basically it's more or less representative. And yeah, so we worked on adding various styling options to get the look that get the desired look out of the chart. And yeah, so this is basically for the styling. And now onto the data part. So a big focus was on providing various data source support. So essentially we made 2 components. One was the chart and one was the data. So the idea is that you can have multiple data components on your chart There's blocks to support this data, like to add entries, to change data sources, to query the data, and so on, to give like flexibility of importing data to visualize. And a big part of it was being very flexible. So we incorporated many of the existing data sources, like databases, existing blocks, fields where you can input your data. For example, you can make it from string and things like that. And we also had like, so we basically support TinyDB, CloudDB, web sources, various sensors, including Bluetooth. Unfortunately, I can't show it right now, but we also tested it with an Arduino, so you can like stream real data and have it graphed on the chart. And we also, one other major change was that we added the data file component. So CSV and JSON support is present on the chart. You can import directly. You can play around with it in the designer. So you can pick the columns for X and Y values, and it reflects on the chart. So yeah, this was basically my project last year. It's still going through some review, but I'm really excited to also present it for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, this was a substantial body of work, and we didn't really share much about what happened in last year's Google Summer Code, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to kind of just see the quality of the projects that we've been able to cultivate over the years with the students helping us. And you'll see that continue on with this year's participants. So I originally was going to ask Diego to participate, but he sent me a message a little while ago saying that he might be a couple minutes late. So we will next go to Himani to talk about the work that she did supporting different previews in the designer so that the user interface is a little bit more what you see is what you get by allowing you to preview what apps might look like on different versions of Android and iOS. So Himani?
Hello everyone. I'm very happy to see you all again. So I'll share my work. Okay. So is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, so this year I worked on improvising the designer. So first of all, you can see this is a blank project, and this is the original classic theme which we had. But now I have to view different preview style. One has to go to device default, and he will see a drop down where there are 3 preview options available. The first is Android Material, Android Hollow, and the iOS devices. So let us just see the material theme. First of all, the users will now be able to change the color of the status bar by just changing the color of the primary dark. So now the users don't have to install the APK again and again just to see the colors. And I have even changed some of the components like checkbox. And when I check the button, you can see the accent color has appeared here. Now I have referred Android Nougat for my reference. So when I change the accent color, the checkboxes are also changed accordingly. And I have introduced the new sliders. Again, the speciality of these sliders is that you will be able to change the colors and you can see what it is going to appear on your devices. So like, so now see, you can see the colors are available here, and one can even shift to other devices, like somebody wants to see how their app will look on older Android devices. So they can, this is the Android Hollow theme, and now here I have referred as Android KitKat for my reference. So you can see the components have changed according to that. And now when I go to iOS, see, I have referred iOS 13 for my design and iPhone X for the mock form. So you, not only the iPhone X, I have even introduced the new sizes for the iOS. Like you can see the iPad for the tablet size and for the monitor size, the huge iPad. So for the, like you can now you can be able to check the to black title text. You can see the icons have changed, and just like in the tablet version also, and in the monitor version also. Now another thing that I have worked is like you can change them to landscape mode. You can see they are also they are also available like in the landscape mode. This is generally done to make a better preview for our users. They can get to see how their apps will look on different mobile devices, including iPad, iPhones, and different Android devices. I have even changed just a minute. Yes, like you can see, uh, not only these devices, I have also changed to the classic theme. Like if I want to go to classic theme, you can see the devices have changed according to old Android devices. For this, I have referred Android Gingerbread, and here even the switch is like the checkbox. So I have changed them according to Android Gingerbread. Here, the color of the sliders is also, you can change the color of the sliders. So basically my aim was to improvise the designer so that users can see what they means. They don't have to install the APK or worry about different Android devices or iOS. They can see how their app will look like on them. That's all.
Great, thank you, Hamani. Does anybody in the group have any questions about Hamani's project? Anything you'd like to ask? Okay. So then the next presentation, actually, Diego, you just popped in. So Diego, would you mind, not to put you on the spot, but would you mind talking about the Android App Bundle work that you did this summer?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, sorry for being late. And during this summer, I have been working on adding the option to export App Inventor projects as Android app bundles. So I will share a screen to show this new option. And as you can see in this server, you will now have in the build dropdown the option to export the app as an Android app bundle. And what is special about this format? The format was invented by Google so they can deliver an optimized version of the app to your users, saving resources and bandwidth when downloaded its size. The idea behind making this is getting rid of the warning that Google is adding into all apps that are being published with App Inventor. And also, like in the summer, there was an update from Google saying that all apps will require to be published with Android app bundles by 2021. So this was great to add it to App Inventor to keep supporting Play Store. And then after finishing this project, because I finished it on July, I kept working on the compiler side by making a huge refactor. So as you can see, the big compiler.java file is now gone. Hold on. The big compiler Java file that was 13,000 lines is now totally gone. And now each step for each task is split into its single Java class file. So it improves maintainability because you don't have to read those 3,000 lines. And instead you have single tasks which can be reused by different build types. And this was my thinking also in the iOS build server to reuse different steps across Android and iOS.
Thanks, Diego. And just as a comment here, I have been taking your pull request and I've been building an iOS build server based on it. It is very helpful having it broken out into individual steps. Obviously there are parts that are different for each type of build, and it makes it a lot easier to kind of think about each step independently of how it goes into the overall system, because you can sort of just test that one piece and then move on to the next piece, which is nice. So I've been finding it very valuable to support some of the iOS work, and I really appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for Diego? Okay. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to, being able to just have people say, use the app bundle version when they ask questions about the Play Store upload. I think I've spent a lot of time responding to those posts. I know some of the other power users have as well, so we'll get that time back and be able to use it more effectively to help others. Okay, so the next presentation will be by Becca Westberg. She implemented option blocks for App Inventor. Becca.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and share my screen so that you can see what I did. Okay, you seeing what I'm seeing? The blocks?
Yep, looks good.
Sweet. So as Evan said, I implemented these drop-down blocks in the blocks editor. And there were a couple of different reasons that we wanted to add these. So one was to eliminate people creating typos and errors accidentally. For example, we had this new assets drop-down block, which displays all of the assets you have loaded into your project. And before, you would just use this text input, and it was very easy to create an error like this, where you would give it a tag .jpg instead of .jpeg. So the dropdowns help eliminate errors like that. Same with this screens dropdown, which displays all of their screens. And then the second thing, besides helping people prevent them from creating typos, was to make it so that you didn't have to spend as much time looking at the documentation when you were programming your projects. For example, this permissions dropdown includes all of the available permissions, so you don't have to go look up which ones are available anymore. And this alignment block displays all of the different alignment options in plain English, whereas before you would have to use a number input and you would have to know which different numbers were associated with different inputs. And this also, the drop-down blocks make things a lot more internationalizable to support people that speak different languages that are using App Inventor. So there are a couple different places that these drop-down blocks can be found. They can be found in the flyout in 2 different places. They can be found attached to the block that uses the dropdown, as well as at the very bottom of the flyout in a detached form so that they can be used in comparisons easily. And then lastly, they can be found in event parameter flydowns. Currently, they're attached to the setter block, but we want to detach that because they're used more often in comparisons than they are used to set values. But you can find them there for convenience as well. So I'm just going to quickly go through and sort of show you the ones that have been added. Maps got some new drop-down blocks. All of the map features now have a map feature drop-down, so you can compare against the type. Markers also got some extra ones, and navigation got transportation method. Then the Lego blocks got a whole bunch of drop-downs, so all of the EV3 sensors except for the touch sensor got a mode sort of property, and then the next direct commands component got a ton of drop-down blocks because it's a much more low-level component and you're using a lot of constants to manipulate it. And then lastly, we have a couple of extra components. So the phone call component got 2 different kinds of statuses. Texting got a receiving state, and the accelerometer sensor now has a sensitivity. And then lastly, the ball and image sprite components have a new direction drop-down block, which is associated with them. Specifically associated with this edge parameter of the edge reached event. And I went ahead and made a little use case example so you can see some of the things that you can do with these drop-down blocks. So one of the things we worked really hard to add, which we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get working, was having these drop-down blocks act as dictionary keys, because there were some pretty complicated backwards compatibility issues with that and the way we wanted to implement these blocks in the back end. But we got it working. So now you can do things like this. So in this case, whenever my image sprite reaches one of the edges of the screen, so either the east, west, north, or south, or how they're labeled in the direction component, I check to make sure it's either east or west. So I only want to do this if it's bouncing off the east edge or the west edge. And then I want to change the picture of my image sprite so that it looks different depending on which wall it bounced off of. And I can use this edge event parameter to do a lookup in the dictionary to find the asset using an asset block that is associated with that edge. So yeah, and if there are any extension developers here, you can create your own custom drop-down blocks. There are ways that you can define them using Java enums, and you can also associate the new asset block with different properties and methods in your component. And I have documentation for that, which I'm sure the dev team will share. Can't click that because of Zoom. We'll share once this actually gets merged in to the main branch of the project, so that extension developers can leverage all of this as well. So I know the design changed a little bit since the original design that I presented at the beginning of the summer. So if anyone has questions or comments about the final product, I would love to answer those.
Thanks, Becca. Yeah, and one thing you didn't mention, which is also really important, I think, although you mentioned it in passing, yes, is backwards compatibility. So, right, all of these things interact with the existing values. So if you know that, say, horizontal left was 1 or something like that, then you can compare them as equals, and it will do the right thing. So yeah, there was a lot of effort that Becca put in.
Yes.
And we had many hours of discussions amongst us about what the best approach was for various types of operations. And yeah, I think you got to learn a lot. Yeah, learn a lot about language design.
Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully it'll work pretty intuitively, and people shouldn't run into problems where it acts in confusing ways, because I tried to make it as consistent as possible. But we'll see once it gets into people's hands how well that worked out.
Right, and I think the other thing that's really valuable from this work too, which again you mentioned, is the translation aspect of it, right? So the fact that these blocks, that was not your job to translate them this summer, but you know, that as we continue to build out translations for App Inventor, that these blocks will be available in the programmer's native language rather than always being either a constant or something, an English string or whatever. I think is going to be also very useful for new learners who are kind of coming on board with App Inventor. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. Does anybody have any questions for Becca about her summer project? We don't really have too many extension developers on here. We have a couple more, but that's okay. All right, thank you, Becca. So the next project that we'll have presented is by C.S. Jain. It's the Tabbar component.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So now I'll demonstrate the work I've done during the GSOC. So I'll just share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess it is visible now.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So I've added a couple of components, namely tab and tab arrangement. So I'll just add them to the screen. So there's one thing to note about this component is this tab arrangement can only accept tab as a child component. It won't accept any other arrangement as well as component as a child component. And similar for the tab. Tab can only be accepted by the tab arrangement. It can't be accepted by any other arrangements. So I'll just add a couple of tabs here. Yeah. So now let's just some components, then we'll see the properties of both the component. So I'm adding just some buttons in tab 2, and then in tab 1, I'll add some components. Yeah. So you can also see the changes on the Android side as well. Yeah. So now we'll see the properties of both the component. Firstly, tab arrangement. So first is the height and width component of the arrangement. So there's just one thing to note here is the automatic height and the automatic width is fill parent for the tab arrangement. So and you can also set it percentage wise or pixel wise, but the automatic height and width is the fill parent. By default, it will occupy all the space which is left in the parent. So next is selected tab indicator color. So as you can view on the Android side, there's a pink line. This pink line is basically the indicator for the selected tab. So you can change the color for this indicator line. For example, if I select green, so you can see the color of this indicator line changes to green. So this is selected tab indicator color. Next is selected tab text color. So again, as the name signifies, it is the text color for the selected tab. So suppose if I select red, so you can see on the Android side the tab 1 is selected, so color for the label is red. Also on the server side, the tab 1 is selected, so the text color is red. If I select tab 2, you can see the changes. Similarly on the Android side, if I select tab 2, you can see the changes. So yeah. Next is tab background color. So tab background color is the background color of this tab bar. So if I set it to, let's say, yellow, so you can see the changes. Okay. The next is tab bar position. So by default, the position of tab bar is at the top of the screen. You can set it to the bottom of the screen, or yeah, or at the top of the screen. Currently, the default and the top options are exactly same. Like the default acts as the top option. Next is tab bar visible. So if I switch off the visibility of the tab bar, so you can see the tab bar is invisible, and now only the view pager thing is remaining. Okay. Next thing is tab text color. So tab text color is the label color for the unselected tabs. So if I set it to, let's say, green, then the tabs which are not selected will have a label color as green. So this was tab text color. Now we'll see the properties of the tab component. So yeah, first is the align horizontal. So this is the horizontal alignment of the tab content. For example, if I set it to center, you can see all the children for this tab are center aligned. Horizontally, they're center aligned. Similarly, for the align vertical, if I set it to, let's say, bottom, then all the children are bottom aligned for this tab. And this obviously this is tab specific, so you can have different alignment options for different tabs. Next is background color. So background color is for the area, for the tab content area, where all the children of the tab are displayed. So we can set the background color, and similarly we have the image option. So if we want to set any image as the background for a particular tab, so we can just set image here as the background image. Next is icon. So icon is basically if we want some icon to be displayed on the tab bar instead of this tab label, instead of this text for tab 1, if we want some icon to represent this tab, we can set icon here. Yeah, we can have both label and icon to be displayed in the tab bar. So we can switch the visibility using these property, this show icon and the show text respectively. If this show icon checkbox is switched off, then the icon would be invisible. Similarly, if this show text properties is checked off, then the label would be invisible. For example, if I turn off the visibility for tab 1, you can see that the label for tab 1 is not visible. Then the last is text for the labels. So if I change it to something MIT App Inventor, then you can see the change label. So that's all.
Thanks, Yash. Yeah, I'm with this particular change, I'm really interested in seeing the sophistication of the apps that people build. I've seen a number of examples on the forum where people have sort of mocked out doing a cabs using a mixture of buttons and arrangements and things of that nature to simulate having this type of arrangement. And so I imagine that when they have this available to them, that they'll be able to build some really sophisticated user interfaces with even less code and less components, which would be nice, I think, for most people. So I'm looking forward to what's going to happen when this is available. Does anyone have any questions for Suyesh? Tough crowd, tough crowd. Okay. Next, we have Sarah, who's going to talk about her work implementing menus in the floating action button.
So, hi everyone. As a part of my Google Summer of project, I have worked on implementing a couple of components. The first one was the menu components, which included all three type of menus: options menu, context menu, and the pop-up menu. The second one was sidebar, and the third one was floating action button. So, to demonstrate the work, I'd like to present my screen. Okay. So, here it is. So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So firstly, I'll change the theme for having a action bar. Yeah. So firstly, I'll talk about the options menu. We already had the option menu in our Android app in App Inventor, but because we had a couple of default menu items which were show about application or exit application, but now this menu is customizable. So user can just drag these menu items in the options menu container, and it will be reflected in the Android side as well. User now there are certain properties for these menu items where can user just change the icon, and the icon will only be reflected if the item is on the action bar. We can have a menu item on the action bar if there is room. So if I select this to be on the action bar, here it goes. Yeah, now user can have icon for this as well. This is not working. Okay, so now we can change the text also. Let's say it's MIT AI. Yeah, this we can change the text also, and we can switch on off the visibility as well. This is for options menu, and to trigger the click event we can just do it in the blocks blockly part, where we can just trigger if when menu item dot click we can do whatever action we want. Basically these options menu should be used to perform actions that have global impact and are not particular to a screen. Okay, so now talking about context menu, we have this context menu which will only be visible if it is selected or a menu item is put into the container. Else if we click somewhere else on the screen or drag some other some other item, it will just go away. We can register any component to have this context menu, and this menu should basically be used to perform actions which affect this selected component. And if we long press this button or whatever the component is registered, we can see this context menu. Similarly, we can trigger the click event through blocks. Yeah, that's for context menu. And now talking about the pop-up menu, we can have pop-up menu as well, where the user can put any number of menu items and can register this like user can register pop-up menu as well on any component. uh, yeah, user that's yeah, user can do using this component selector, and user can select this button too. And when you just press this button too, we'll have this pop-up menu. This menu should basically be used for the extended functionalities. Like suppose we have this button, and if we click this, what this button can add, let's say it's a contact screen, so it can add the contact to the existing one or to a new contact. So it should be used for extended functionality. This is all about menus. And now we have this sidebar component. The sidebar component has this sidebar header and the main sidebar, where in sidebar header user can put any component inside it, and in the sidebar user can just put the menu item. So yeah, just let me show the, so user can just put the menu item. Suppose it's not working in my app inventor right now. So that's for sidebar. And the thing to note is only these menus and sidebar can accept this menu item. No other component can do that. And now we have this floating action button. User can just drag it and it will come to the position. So yeah, this is the floating action button. This is basically a circular button which floats over the UI and should basically be used to trigger the primary actions for the screen. We can just have a single floating action button. If someone tries to have a second or third floating action button, it will just show a warning that a floating action button is already present. So yeah, and we can have click events for floating action button as well. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I mean, this has been quite a large project in terms of just the amount of functionality that you've added. And just regarding your, when you're trying to drag in the menu item there, it looks like what was happening is it was enumerating the position in the pop-up menus. So we might just need to make some minor adjustments to handle the Z order of the elements on the screen. All right, there it goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And again, I mean, there's a lot of customization here, and the fact that I guess one thing you didn't show, which I think is also in my right, is in the main menu, or the regular options menu, there's also the ability to turn on and off the about and the help or the exit buttons, I think it is.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah,
We
so
can
you
just
can,
switch off this.
I know that's been a point of
Exactly, just
contention. Yeah.
yeah.
That some people sometimes want to make those go away. And so, yeah, now we'll have the ability to customize that. Yeah, so there's a lot in here. And, you know, I think, again, it's one of these situations where once we put out these components, we're going to see a lot of customization of the apps people build in 11 to build more sophisticated user interfaces where there's a lot more interactivity with the user. And, you know, I'm kind of excited to see how you know, new apps take advantage of some of these components. I think especially the floating action button is going to be a popular one as a way of sort of interacting with and adding data to projects, to applications. So, so yeah, I mean, this is great. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah about her implementation? Abraham says, will the stock MIT emulator be able to support this? The base one for Windows, the one that's currently published, does not. It supports the regular menus, but it doesn't support the action button, and it doesn't support the sidebar. We're trying to work out some crashes that happen with those. The minimum SDK for these is going to be 14 when the final code goes out. If you use the current Mac emulator, it works fine, and when the new Windows emulator is out of beta, it will work. I mean, it does work in that one if you have it installed, but officially it's not published, right? So, but yeah, anything from Android 4.0 and higher should be fine. Any other questions? So thank you, Sarah. And then the last student presentation today is from Pavitra Golcha, who is going to talk about his work on adding support for visible extensions to App Inventor.
Hello, everyone. So, am I audible?
Yes.
So my project is all about creating visible component extension, which allows extension developers to create visible components just like the regular built-in ones. And I hope this will be a great for extension developers, as they can utilize the unexplored parts of the App Inventor extensions. And without wasting any time, let me show you the demo. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is my local server with the visible component extension branch, and I'm using prototype 1, which I created for this project. And actually there are 2 prototypes. First one uses script element based implementation, which is not secure, and the other prototype uses iframes, and which is secure by design. And I'm showing the demo for prototype 1 because this is functional, and prototype 2 is unusable at this moment. So let's see the demo. I have already imported a Cowsay extension which I created to test this project. This is a simple VCE which shows the popular Cowsay messages, and let me just drag it here. As you can see this screen, the mock has this VCE, and it is just like any regular visible component, like buttons. So you can totally use it like any other visible component, and you can also make this interactive. And let me show you how this VCs is written can be written by extension developers. Is this screen visible? VS Code.
No, we're still just seeing the Chrome window.
Okay. I think I had to stop. So this is the source for Cowsay extension, and this is the Android runtime code, and this is similar to what regular built-in visible component looks like, and it is basically the same except this line. This line tells the the extension generator to look for this file, which is mock component name.js inside this AI WebRes directory. And the mock for this mock class for this extension looks like this. Its API is similar to what built-in mock API looks like, and it has same APIs, almost same API. With prototype 2, I think the APIs I'm trying to keep the API similar and with a little bit changes. And one last thing is that VCs must be registered in this mock component registry before use, and it should be used one time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Pavitra. Yeah, so visible extensions has been a topic that people, basically asked about the day that the non-visible extensions came out, I think. And so it'll be really interesting to see how extension developers take this and run with it. going forward. So, you know, I think there are a lot of examples where even internally where we've wanted to make extensions to provide certain functionality, like, you know, the ability to, all of our AI stuff, for example, right? So right now you have to put in a web viewer and then the content is loaded into the web viewer and all that. And if it could just be something that appears in the UI without having to futz around with specifying components and all that stuff, it would save everyone a lot of time. So I'm even expecting that we will adopt this going forward for some of our extensions as well. And, you know, the extensions community has been really vibrant. And so it'll be fun to see kind of what people come up with in terms of the functionality going forward. Does anyone have any questions for Pavitra about the extensions work? Okay. Well, that is all the presentations for today, and I just would like to extend very warm thanks to all of you for your hard work this summer. You know, when I was putting together the test server and compiling all the different pieces of it together so that we could have one amalgamated system, you know, it's just the breadth of the work and the depth of the work you've been doing is really fantastic. So, and like I've said, I think with all these presentations, I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing, you know, how they stoke the creativity of our end users in terms of the types of apps they build and the depth of the apps they build. So thank you for that. For those of you who, you know, have an opportunity to do Google Summer of Code again in the future, if you want to participate again, in the future Google Summer of Code, please just reach out to your mentor or reach out to me, and we'll certainly work with you to put together a good proposal for that. Not to put you on the spot, Susan, but do you have anything as the Google Summer of Code coordinator that maybe you'd like to say to wrap up?
You know, I mean, we've covered a lot of the work. I think this really has been the most productive summer of code. I mean, I've been involved in two, so I can't say that I speak from an incredibly broad perspective, but looking at our participation in the past and the other that I participated in, I think this has been our most productive, most vibrant summer of code. We're really grateful to everybody who participated, and I think we were really lucky to get the team together that we were able to get. And these are huge advancements in App Inventor, and it's going to be exciting to see how they're received. Yes.
Thanks, Susan. So what I'm going to do is I will update the thread on the community site to include the link to the test server where you can try out all of these projects. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description. And thank you all for coming. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to follow up on the community site. All the students are there. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any follow-up questions you might have. Thanks. Have a good day.